So I'm so sorry. We had a technical glitch. You might have heard a little bit of the beginning of our intro, but just in case you didn't, and we're officially on now, I'd like to welcome our distinguished panel here today. We have Dr. Joy, of course, and we're also doing a collaborative segment today with Word in Black. I'm going to introduce Liz, and Liz is going to introduce her team, and then I'll introduce my daughter. Go ahead.
Hello, hello, everyone. My name is Liz Corkela Saunier. I'm the Managing Director of Word in Black. We are Black America's Digital Daily, and we are a national newsroom rooted in the legacy of the Black press. We have partner publishers on the East Coast, Baltimore Afro, 133 years old, doing their thing all that time, all the way to the West Coast, Sacramento Observer, which just celebrated, I think, 62 years, and everything all in between. You can visit us on the web at wordinblack.com. And we're just so honored to be a part of this conversation with Dr. Joy and Dr. Bahia, and also bring our racial healing fellows here with you to talk about how we support our Black youth. So I'm going to turn it over to our fellows. And Denham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to say I express an immense amount of gratitude for the opportunity. I'm Denham Fisher. I am a rising sophomore at Spelman College. I'm studying literature, media, and writing with a comparative women's studies minor on the pre-law track. And I am also a racial healing ambassador and fellow with Word in Black. I'm a journalist, poet, and a recent researcher. I have studied the transatlantic slave trade and its impact on contemporary societies in both France and Ghana. And my research is around official memory, vernacular memory, and seeking to the work of descendants and how they seek to autonomize their stories and identities. Thank you.
Aaliyah, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the call today. My name is Aaliyah Amos. I'm a recent graduate from Rutgers University, Newark, here in Newark, New Jersey. I graduated with my bachelor's in journalism with a minor in social justice, so I'm very familiar with Dr. Joy's work. Currently, I love being a part of the Racial Healing Fellows here with Word in Black, and also working for a nonprofit performing arts center, working on their audience development to really be a pillar within the community rather just an organization in a building there. So I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And last from our team is Makai.
Yes, hello everybody. This is Makai Abbott. I am a recent graduate of the University of Maryland. I got my master's in journalism. I did my undergraduate studies at the illustrious Howard University, as you can see on my shirt. I am a racial healing fellow, and I am also a freelance reporter for the Afro, which is one of the partners of Word in Black. So I'm happy to be here as well.
So I would like to introduce our team. It's, my name is Dr. Bahia Overton. I run a nonprofit organization called the Black Parent Initiative, but I've dedicated much of my time in life and work to creating equity in systems, largely education and social welfare. And before we get to Dr. Drew, because this is why we're here, because of Dr. Drew, my daughter Naima is on the call, and she has been immersed in kind of a social justice family her entire life. And like her to introduce herself and what she's doing.
Like, hi everybody. Like she said, I'm Naomi Overton. That's my mom, and Dr. Joy is my grandmother. I am a rising junior at Tuskegee University. I'm a biology major, and I also act as a Black youth suicide prevention consultant, along with interning at different medical schools in orders with hopes to help the racial disparities. And yeah, it's me.
Excellent.
Hear me. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to be with you. I have to say, I feel hope being in this space with you all. I have loved the work I've done around historical healing and historical injury and understanding the contemporary impact that it is having and wanting very much to pass the baton in a way that makes sense for all of the young people here in this space. I am very happily passing the baton to you because you are the ones that are likely to hit the tape. I will not. And I feel as an elder, as a social scientist, as a Black woman living in the resurgence of white supremacy, I have a responsibility to lean in every way that I can and to know that I don't always have to have the mic. But I have you. I'm here for you. But I do understand that there's a point at which I need to step away from that and relinquish that mic to you.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so excited that we're all here. I'm going to actually turn it over to Liz. Liz has created some really amazing questions for our panel. And I do think that it kind of captures what we're talking about. Really, we're talking about racial healing and how young people, emerging scholars, researchers, medical providers, all those folks rising up are able to kind of, what do you need to be supported in the work that you're trying to do? What do you need to help continue to inspire other youth that are around you, your peers, the people who are that you mentor, who look up to you. How are you in this work, and how can we support you? So I'm going to give it to Liz to kind of launch our first couple of questions.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why, I mean, our fellows have been writing about racial healing since I think end of January, beginning of February. And we all know that anti-Blackness is not new, but when we were adults and we were in high school, when we were in college, we didn't have to deal with social media. We didn't have to deal with the white lash against our first Black president. This generation, you all are coming of age in the midst of all these attacks on DEI, attacks on the ability to teach truth in our schools. You cannot even say the word racism anymore in some spaces. Put it in your paper if you want to write it. We're seeing the dismantling of all sorts of community initiatives on racial justice, but there is this other tradition that has been longstanding, which is of racial healing. And you all have been immersed in these spaces and you saw what has happened as a result of everything that is going on to these spaces on your campus this year. But, like Dr. Joy said, these are still spaces where we can build trust, start to heal and figure out, what is this going to look like? So I guess my first question for you is you got to start with the truth. That is one thing we also know is that you have to know what is going on right now. So I guess the first question is, what do you all, from what you have seen and what you've reported on and what you're experiencing, what does racial trauma look like in the lives of Black youth your age today? And how is it showing up for Black young people?
I guess I can take that question first, which is a really good question. And it makes me think and like kind of reflect on what are trend lines that I kind of saw throughout my stories and when actually talking to students. And I think a really important thing is feeling like they're seen on the campus that they're in and like reflected in the staff and not only from the professors, but even down to the cooks at the school or the people who they have those everyday interactions with. And if people don't feel like their campus is diverse in a space that reflects the things that they're teaching, then how can you expect them to really obtain that information? So for me, I would say for the Rutgers campus specifically, being that it was such a diverse campus, and it was in the city of Newark, we were able to see like Black staff. We were able to learn about a lot of things, and Rutgers pushed back multiple times against a lot of the executive orders that the Trump administration was putting out, and even hosted a talk with Joy and Reed at the school, really getting people to calm down and say, what do these things really mean? And providing education, not just in the classroom space, because those things are very easily trackable. A lot of professors were worried, but and the use of events. So if other centers at the school was able to push back a little harder, then maybe they harbor these talks so that professors don't feel too much pressure, but students still have some place to go to talk about the things that were scaring them.
Yeah, I would like to feed off of what Aaliyah just said. For me personally, I had the unique experience of being able to go to both an HBCU and PWI. So I think it looks different depending on like what type of school that you go to. I know Denham could probably speak to this because she also goes to HBCU. But when you're in a all black school, you know, those are things that you don't necessarily have to worry about on a day-to-day basis. But when you're going to a PWI, it is something that you're definitely very cautious of. I would say that the University of Maryland is a pretty decently diverse, I guess I would say, for a PWI. But being able to have those spaces where you can just speak openly and honestly about how you feel, making sure that you have people that look like you, or people that don't look like you, but they're willing to sit down and try to understand the type of thing that you go through. I did a very interesting story this year about a man by the name of Lieutenant Collins, who unfortunately passed away because he was stabbed by a University of Maryland student. He was actually a student from Bowie University. So these are still things that happen. These are crazy things, but I think it's more so just, you know, making sure that we're not being silenced. I think that's very important, especially when you're at a predominantly white institution. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I just want to say I also go to HBCU and I agree with what you're saying, Makai, because my friend, she goes to Texas Tech and her experience throughout college was completely different than mine. It's in Lubbock, Texas. It's not diverse at all. It's straight white people and she was constantly getting pushed down and her confidence level was just going down because of the environment she was in. But at my school, like at Tuskegee, just being around black people with people who expect you to do well all the time, I think is a very important thing and can change your outlook completely. So, yeah.
I would say, pulling from the words of the Combahee River Collective, the personal is political. I would say that Spelman College definitely embodies that in every way. And it is incredibly refreshing and affirming to be in spaces, to be in classrooms, to be in organizations, to be in the cafeteria with people who understand your Black experience and can empathize and speak on and piggyback, etc. I think that going to a HBCU is necessary. And I think that I really began to understand its importance the day after Kamala Harris lost the election, unfortunately. I remember there was an email that was sent out about students and faculty meeting in the Sisters Chapel, and there was a convocation where faculty and students got to heal out loud, grieve together, feel together, be in community together. And I remember just like one day after a class of African diaspora in the world, which is my favorite class, by the way, I made a voice memo recording in my phone. And I said, you know, if I was anywhere else right now, I would not be okay. If I was back at home at my PWI high school, I would not be okay. But because I chose to come to this school and I'm here, I feel important. I feel like I matter. And I feel like my voice is growing. And I can definitely see the confidence growing, the spirit growing. Um, I think this journey is really teaching me to return. I think that to return to the authentic self. And so I would say that right now, I agree with Makai. I think that wherever you are, your experience with racial healing and racial trauma looks different. But I can definitely say that at this moment in time at Spelman College, my HBCU, that healing out loud is something that is embedded in our culture. And there is still more work to be done. Because I think, you know, coming to an HBCU, I was able to learn that Blackness is not monolithic. And so, yes, we do relate in terms of our Blackness, but yes, our perceptions, our experiences, and our other forms of identity can look different. And so, that was the first time I learned about the term intersectionality and just understanding like how Blackness, queerness, disabilities, things, neurodivergence versus neurotypicalness, etc. Like those different identity groups can definitely impact how you relate to your Blackness and how racial trauma impacts you.
Well,
Someone actually came into the space. Ashanti.
Hello, hello.
Yes, is the one and only Ashanti Branch, who is founder and executive director of the Ever Forward Club out of Oakland, and also what I call a living angel, who has worked with, I don't know how many countless Black and Brown youth in Oakland through it. And is it y'all still have like 100% high school graduation rate and 90 something percent of the youth who come through your program go on to college? Is that, I think I read that, right?
College, high school, college, trade school, or military. Yeah.
Yep. And he is also the creator of the Million Mask Movement, who right before this call, I was telling my oldest son, about this. And just the first time that I did that exercise, how transformative it was. But Ashanti, the question was, how is racial trauma showing up for our Black youth right now? And I know you have some insights into that.
Yeah, first of all, forgive my tardiness. I was with an intern, and I was trying to break the conversation, and he wasn't stopping. So I gotta go. Like, so I apologize. First of all, I definitely value your time here. And there was an African American young man who is in college, but also as we work with our mostly in high school, middle school young men, we're just hearing them trying to find the words to carefully express what they're experiencing and not experiencing. Some of them, we're in Oakland, so it's a large Hispanic population as well. And some of them are expected to be feeling traumatic for others. Expected to, they have friends who are going through it, and they're expected to also carry the weight of that familial stress experience that communities are having. And so some of them are having a hard time because they're not feeling as empathetic as others would want them to feel. They're feeling real feelings about why are we in this position in the first place? Why am I now feeling guilty because there's a situation that happened, right? And I think because they're not voting age, but they are thinking age, and they think about a lot of things, and they're struggling to be with their friend groups because their friend groups are like, why are Black people not out fighting for us? And they're like, hey, I'm 16. I don't know what you're talking about. But nonetheless, I know who my mom voted for, and then they're having these conversations with their friends, brown and Black boys, trying to have real heartfelt conversations about real topics that they're still navigating. How do I not break a friendship because now there's this tension of how I'm expected to show up right now in the world. I think the other thing we see with some of our young men are just not having a lot of space to be young men who feel in their communities, right? I know what I was taught, and it wasn't written in a book. It was just the expectation. You suck it up. Don't talk about how you feel. Your feelings are not going to be safe here. So you better not ever be sad, afraid, or worried. You better not be too nice. Don't be too kind. Don't smile too much. This is where Oakland taught me, and I taught a lot of the young men we work with now, just giving them space. Hey, what's happening? How you doing? And really asking them when they say "I'm fine," which is one of our slogans. That I'm fine. Oh, tell me what fine means. What's fine? And they know if they give me an answer, I'm like dig deeper. Oh, I'm good. Oh, tell me what's good, right? Because you may think that Brussels sprouts are good. I don't quite think they're good. So, and I'm not gonna judge what you say is good, but maybe you're going through something that is probably not something that you should call good, right? You know what I'm saying? If you're stressed out, worried, you can't sleep, you're just smoking to wake up, you're smoking to go to sleep, and you would say you're good, I would probably as a mentor of yours say, please let's help define good a little better, And I think our work is with young men, trying to give them just room to have good words to feel what they really feel in a society that tells them your feelings are not really welcome here. So that's some of the things that we're experiencing, and definitely in Oakland where marijuana is legalized, our young men are getting access to it. They've always had access to it, but now they're getting access to it easier, more easier. Candy, cookies, gummies, whatever, and they're walking around like zombies oftentimes, just disconnected because it's some of the real stuff they're dealing with is painful. So we're trying to really work on some of that. And I think our young people think that you can't be addicted to marijuana. So they're like, I can't be addicted. This is natural. It's not, that wasn't grown out in the fields. That was grown in the lab. And it's designed to have you disconnect. And so I think that we're really trying to, we let them feel. We expect them to feel. It's kind of like our expectation. And really to ask them the hard questions, how are you navigating the tough stuff? And that's our work. So that's what we're hearing from them, and we're continuing to do that work. The Million Mask Movement. If you were to think of the mask, what we call it is if you have a go-to answer when someone asks you how you're doing, that's let me see. I probably need glasses here. I can't see the names. Let me see. Naime, is it Naim? Naim?
Yeah, it's Naime.
Naime. If somebody you had a go-to answer when someone asks you how you're doing, do you have a go-to answer?
Yeah, just good. It's fine.
Yeah. Makai, what about you? When you have a go-to answer when someone asks you how you're doing?
I typically will say, like, I'm either doing well or I'll say, I'm living, like something that's kind of like in the middle, you know.
Okay. Um, Denim? The denim?
Yes, it's denim. I always say I'm good.
Okay. And Aaliyah?
Yes, it's Aaliyah. And I usually say, like, I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah. Liz, what do you say? What's your go-to?
Still alive.
Dr. Joy, what's your go-to answer when someone says how you're doing?
I'm well.
Well. And Dr. Bahia, what do you say?
I say I'm well, typically.
I'm
Yeah.
well. Have any of you ever said those answers to someone, but it wasn't actually true? In that moment, you said it, but it wasn't actually true. Anybody ever did that before? And so in the Million Mask Movement, we just call that the mask. I didn't tell them to maybe deceive them. I just tried to keep it moving. I tried to keep things cool. I didn't want to stress them with my problems. I didn't want to worry them what I was going through. I used the words that would keep things at the expectation of what they're expecting me to sometimes be like. And maybe I don't think they even care. Or maybe they're not really asking. Maybe they're using how you're doing as a greeting. They really just meant to say hi, but they add tacked on how you're doing. And therefore now because I don't want to really get into it, I just give them an answer that keeps things moving. So in our work, we call that the mask. And so the stuff happening behind the mask, we're asking our young men, do you have a space to talk about that stuff behind the mask? When you're not good, who do you go to talk about not being good? When you're not fine, when you're not well, when you're not living the dream, who do you get to go to? And I think oftentimes people don't know who to go to. So that's been our work. So thanks for letting me share, and I'm so glad to be here with you all.
That's wonderful. I mean, just that, just actually saying that out loud, and the people who are kind of locking into what we're talking about, that there is a tool. There is a self-reflection right there, because there's also something that happens when you know you're not and you say it, that you are. There's something that goes on with you. There's an energy that's produced. Um, and I will often say, because of the contradiction that causes dissonance for me, because it feels dishonest, and that's a problem for me, is I'll say I'm struggling well. I'm struggling well. And I mean that actually. That's not just a saying. And I look, people will tell me, how's the family? I said, we're struggling well, because struggle you will. But I also appreciate that you are working with young men in so many spaces that Bahia and I work in. There is this normalizing of the absence of Black men. They just they just normalize it. I asked an entire group of parents. I had a parents meeting, and all of these people came into the room, and I asked them, "Is there something unusual about this parent meeting?" They all looked around. I don't know, our ages. I said, there are no men. The children didn't spring from the ground. What are we doing? And how is it we have normalized the absence of men and fathers and brothers and sons? You know what I'm saying? We have done it. And so that the fact that you are zeroing in on men and boys is just really, I so deeply appreciate that, because we need them, and we want to welcome them into our spaces and normalize their being present. So thank you for that work.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the things we've seen recently, and definitely, we're about to hit this milestone. So imagine people going to make a mass. It's 6 words of self-reflection, 3 words for the front, 3 words for the back. And we've seen so many men are kind of in this front, which is the expectations, right? Happy, funny, cool, athletic, all the things, and the stuff that's on the back are stuff that I think they're hungry to talk about. They're hungry to talk about, and that because they've been told by either society or their own belief or even family, like we don't talk about our feelings, don't talk about how we feel. I remember going to school one day after my mom had an argument with my uncle. My mom was had a, my uncle was drunk, but he loved me. He never hurt me. But my mom was like walking down the hallway with a butcher knife, right?
Oh,
So I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I go to school the next day. I got show and tell. I don't got show, I got tell. I told the story. Teacher thought I was lying. She called my mom. I get home. My mom's ready to whoop me. I'm like, she's like, you don't be telling our business out in the world. I'm like, this didn't just happen to you. This happened to me. I woke up at 3 in the morning. You walking down the hall with a butcher knife. How is now you mad at me for telling about something that I woke up to in the morning? And I think when we have that rule, what happens in this house stays in this house. We tell kids to lock that trauma in, don't talk about it. And our young men, they get good at protecting the story, protecting the narrative, which oftentimes doesn't never always serve them. But yeah, I got good at protecting the narrative. But everything's good, everything's fine, nothing happened. The weekend was great, and that work is hard. And so when I talk to young men, I'm like, okay, well, you're safe here if you ever need to talk about what's going on behind what you're telling me now. So it's so beautiful.
secrets make us sick.
So thank you and welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. We have kind of an interesting dynamic, right? Because we have me and Dr. Joy working in social service. We have several students here, several of whom are working in Word in Black. And we have my daughter who, I begged her to come onto this space because she's young, she's in school, and she's experiencing life in real time, right? Some of you are graduated, some of you are not graduated yet, and you're in this work. And she is on a new path compared to mom and I in terms of looking at medical disparities and health disparities and trying to help on the prevention side, right? We do a lot of work to heal what the injury's already been done. And so I was wondering in this conversation too, I know we're going to move through this, but just thinking about we're all talking about healing from racial trauma, but I'm also wondering about what are the things that our youth can be doing to buffer themselves in a way that it's like, what can we do to inoculate you to what's coming so that you're not healing from it once it's happened, that you've been protected so that when it hits, it's not as destructive, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
Great question.
I will take this question first again. Um, Currently with my role at a nonprofit performing arts center, I think the arts is a really underrated way of getting young people's minds really stimulated. Like, I mean, from a young age as well. A recent event that we had was a classical kids event, and it was completely free. All parents had to do was register, and it was on a beautiful plaza. And the kids heard classical music. They got to interact with classical instruments, and I mean there were babies out there. There was kids from super duper young all the way up to around 9 or 10, and the place was just completely packed out. And it was one of those events that are like, for a performing arts center, you want to have your comedians, you want things that's going to make money, but how do you give back to a community in a way that's not oversaturated but is also helping them and opening their eyes to new experiences and new things? And I think arts education programs in general really help kids sit down and visualize what they're intaking and what they're hearing on a day-to-day basis. So even the use of like drawings, like what are children seeing? What are they retaining? What books are they reading that art styles reflect things that they commonly see on a common basis? And them knowing that they have the ability to then become a producer of those things as well. So I think honestly, it's an approach to work that a lot of people are doing. I think speaking from a journalistic side, how are we covering the ways this is actually helping children? And how do we get that coverage nationally so that people actually know, hey, instead of putting them in a football camp every summer, maybe
Yeah.
switch it up one year and see how they might like it. So
Yeah. good idea.
I actually wanted to feed off of what you just said because I feel like I could relate on a personal level. So I'm definitely pro sports. I was an athlete all throughout college as well too, but I definitely do think supporting the arts is very important. One of the things that my parents did when I was younger is that I was actually a part of both tap dance and I played piano. I did guitar for a year. My parents wanted to make sure that I was multifaceted, and in hindsight, I can really see the benefits in that even in the moment if I didn't really see all for what it was. I always enjoyed it, but sometimes you don't really get to see the full picture of it until you're out of it. And I my mom always tells me that she feels like me doing tap dance kind of like unlocked like my personality. Honestly, that's what she said, which I think is kind of fascinating. So like Aaliyah said, it's not just the sport because I feel like a lot of times we're quick to put black boys in the sports. And again, I want to reiterate that I love sports. I'm very pro sports. I'm a big sports guy, but I think sometimes parents, and honestly sometimes you can even say black fathers are afraid to kind of put their sons into some of those unorthodox type of things that could be very important for them on like an expressive standpoint or just having that community. And also to the journalistic part of it, like you said, I had an opportunity to do a story for Word and Black that it was called Art Rising in Baltimore. And I think that was beautiful because, like, just like she said, it was kids ranged from all type of different ages, people that were in high school, middle school, elementary school, and just being able to express themselves, whether it's drawing, whether it's performance art, all of that is super important. But like I said, you never know if you don't ever like dip your toe into it. So I think that's just is very vital.
Oh, that's dope. That's for somebody to be able to say that and somebody to hear you say that, I think is important.
When I think about this question, I think about a quote that I saw today that said, "The best activism is equal parts anger and love." And I would just say that events of resistance and truth telling are what we need at this moment. I really agree with Aaliyah and Makai about the importance of art as truth telling and art as healing. I grew up in a household where I was taught to be a fighter, but I also feel like I've always been a lover. And so balancing that duality was not embraced. And I actually boxed for 7 years, but I feel like, boxing did not allow me to exert or express my emotions in a way in which I wanted to. And, when I talk about events of resistance and truth telling, I think about in March of this year how award-winning journalist and professor Nicole Hannah-Jones hosted a read-in when schools wouldn't, because of the threat of, slashing DEI programming. And this event that she had was a free event for the public, and it, touched on Black books and authors and themes. And so I think right now we need more of those free events. We need more of those outlets where our history is not sugar-coated, erased, or disrespected. Um, Prior to the Trump administration, I was already in an environment where my truth was attacked on the daily. I remember a guidance counselor, giving me a perception test because I wrote in a scholarship essay that I attended a predominantly white school, and he was threatened by that. And he had me like do this test where I organize uh students into different classes and all this other nonsense. And I just thought to myself, like, I am not a scientist or sociologist or any of these other things. Why is it relevant to, organize students in these categories? And this quote unquote perception test was not a way to really celebrate and honor my truth. This perception test was a way to attack my truth and to neutralize my power, to neutralize my fight and my inner storm. And my inner storm wasn't just a storm that, sought to destruct for no good reason. There was always a cause behind my grit and my anger. And so I think about just in times where our perception is questioned, erased, denigrated. We need more events of resistance and truth telling. And as Aaliyah stated, the arts is the best way to go. As a poet, as a writer, I will say that poetry quite literally saved my life. And I went to a workshop during my ninth grade year of high school, and I've been writing ever since. And I don't think I'll ever put down the pen.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with the arts being a very good outlet. Like I was in African dance my whole life, and my mom and my grandma can tell you I did not want to do it. I was like, I'm not trying to do this in Portland. Like I hate African dance. Like I wasn't at all trying to do it. But after like how many years? It's been like 10, I don't know. It's so many years that I've done it. It's like my favorite thing to do every time I come home. I go straight to the workshop, straight to classes just to get myself back in it. And it also even helped me like in college. Like I did a pageant in college and used African dance. It's really something that I just adore and love. And my mom and my dad, they also put me in like so many things when I was little. I did soccer, ballet, like all types of stuff. But I think that was really helping me grow and try new things. And I have like sometimes I feel like I have some deep anxiety with trying new things. I think being put in so many different spaces with different types of people just like helped me adapt and grow myself more.
Oh yeah, we know. I put her in class. She said, "I'm not a dancer. You're trying to make me be you." But the thing is, part of it being in a city where there's 6% African American people. Oh, that's her painting. I mean, she painted that when she was 4. Yeah,
They made me do everything. It's like,
abstract. But the goal for me was, and when I'm thinking about buffering, right? So we're in a city that is 6% Black people. So you could go an entire day in some cases and not see anybody really. And so I have this Black girl, and I had Black children, but I was Black little girl, and I'm like, I find out that her friend Kimura, still her friend today, was the only Black girl on a soccer team way on the other side of town. And I'm like, I'm driving every Saturday to that soccer because I'm gonna put her on that team. So I think that I could easily have been like, put her in the soccer team down the street because it's convenient for me. But part of my buffering for her was to see some reflection in the things that she was doing. I think having a grown Black woman who came out of a very melanin impoverished city but has a solid sense of self is a win. But I think a lot of that comes from thinking about the potential impact and what could actually buffer her from what's coming, right? I used to think about, you know what? I wish that I had put my children, grown them up in other cities where there's more Black people, but you're also going to also maybe expose them to also more colorism. And so there's all these dynamics that you're trying to buffer your kids from. But I think putting them in the arts, putting them in places where they are naturally supposed to express themselves is a way that will prevent you from getting those spaces. People try to silence you or tell you you're not talented or tell you you can't do things to know that you can. So thank you guys for sharing that. That's beautiful. I'm gonna turn it back over to Liz.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was thinking about when you're talking about only 6% Black, right? And so it's like you need those other allies, those co-conspirators, right? Those people who are willing to actively challenge racism in your school, in your community, on campus. And I know, Denim, you interviewed Dr. Cynthia Spence, and she was who developed the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Center at Spelman. Can you talk a little bit about what she told you and some of the things that you learned from that conversation around co-conspirators, the need for allies, and the need for people who will actively challenge racism?
Absolutely. So Dr. Spence, she talked about how we need to move away from allies to co-conspirators. And she said that we need people who are actually doing the groundwork, getting on the front line, using their megaphone, whether figuratively or literally, to actually amplify Black stories, voices, and Black justice. And she said Black women in particular have been fighting for a while. And it's not that, the fight is over and that Black women are giving up per se, but she stated that, basically, the activism, the fight, the advocacy work, it needs to be passed around to, or and not necessarily passed around, but it needs to be incorporated in many, many lives, both Black, white, and different, other groups, etc. And, I highly agree. I would say that, earlier, Dr. Bahia, when you were talking about affirming Black children, I thought about how the rhetoric in some Black households, or even at my HBCU, has been, we break you down here to build you up. We break you down here because you are going to, face a world of chaos and things of that nature. And what I would say is that, going back to what Liz stated earlier, it starts with truth. And a lot of us, a lot of Black youth that I know, struggle with starting with truth because their truth has been invalidated their whole lives. I think that we need to focus on the interior before we move to the exterior. And instead of breaking down our youth at home, instead of breaking down our youth in colleges and in spaces where they should be affirmed, they should be uplifted so that, as you were stating earlier, how do we buffer our youth so that when they experience these attacks, this monstrosity, it can be, alleviated in some way. And I think that oftentimes there is a myth that, okay, if I, if I'm too soft on you, or if I'm not preparing you, you won't be able to fight challenges. But what I will say is that if you build someone up and if you prepare them for the world, then I think that they will have higher levels of self-esteem and confidence when it comes to dealing with, struggles and battles. But I'm going off a tangent here, but going back to what Dr. Spence was saying, like with moving from allies to co-conspirators, I think about times in high school. I was reading an article earlier, and a person was saying that they wanted to be seen as a person and not the token. And so when we're talking about co-conspirators instead of allies, we're talking about people who we need to see more people who are not just clapping behind closed doors or saying, good job, I'm proud of you, or that was really great what you did out there. We need more people who are saying, that was not okay. Let me step in and intervene, or let me voice my opinion, because that was not humanity. That was craziness. That was racism, um, sexism, xenophobic, um, things of that nature. Um, I remember just being the Black girl in high school who was called on a lot to battle things. And I remember, like, the same counselor who gave me that perception test, he actually recruited me this one time to give a Black student from a private school a tour of our school. I went to a public school, and he recruited me because this student was battling with racism at her private school. And I think in that moment, I shouldn't have been the spokesperson for the school. And I also don't think that him selecting me as the spokesperson or the tour guide came from a genuine or authentic place. And it's really funny how I was that spokesperson and he called on me in that moment. But when it came to my truth, he denied me. So with that being said, I think that we just need more authentic people who are in the space. And I think that is definitely what Dr. Spence was getting at. We don't need people who are just, ambivalent and flimsy and betraying you and stepping in at one point, but then turning their back at another point. What she was getting at is that when things get hard, we need people to stay.
Mhm.
I wanted to take a moment. There's so much richness here. So much of that tear you down, I'm gonna beat you. So all of those actually, many of those started with enslavement. I've been to 7 countries in Africa. Nobody's beating the children down to build them up. But if you are in a space that is hostile, where your children could die, those methods, which was agency, folks were doing what they had to do to survive in hostile environments where, your life was on the line. I really get that, but we're not there. And the other piece around it's so interesting because I grew up, I'm 67. I grew up in the 60s, right? So I grew up, my brother was affiliated with the Black Panthers. My sister was a political activist, a political science major in college. I never got little, kind of books that were little girly books. Hello, God, this is Margaret. I got The Fire Next Time. Autobiography of Malcolm X. I was just like 9, right? But my sister would hand me these books and fully expect me to be able to engage when she returned on break, right? So I grew up in an activist household, and I was unusual in that way. I was in the breakfast program for the Panthers. We were together with the Brown Beret. So you had all of these Latinx kids or Latino kids or Hispanic kids. We had all these kids, and we would eat together. We would debate. My very first debate was at 11 years old. And the debate, I was debating with the one other little boy who was 11, and we were debating the philosophies of Martin and Malcolm. And it was the first debate I ever won. And I think that, and I was very passionate. I mean, my brother was, in the Black Panthers, and I was like very, Malcolm, it was all the way. But part of why I'm bringing that up is my brother, who became an actor, uh, created a workshop for youth. And I grew up in that workshop where I found my voice. And what I mean by that, not just that I always knew and felt like I had something to say, but to have skill to say it. He put me on a stage, and I did poetry, and we did drama, and we did improvisation, and all of those things with which built a confidence. And of course, later Bahia, as she was coming up, was part of that workshop, and many hundreds of other youth. So I believe that arts are really critical. They help really infuse a sense of voice. When I see Naime dance, a whole nother Naime emerges when she's on that stage. She is not my granddaughter. She is someone else when she is dancing. And the whole audience can feel that energy. And there is this transference that it is a call and response. And the last thing that I wanted to say as it relates to allies, because I travel around, and those of you that are familiar with my work, there are plenty of people that come up to me and they say to me, particularly white people, listen, what can I do? What can I do? Many people familiar with my sister-in-law, the trip to the grocery store, half black, half white, looks white, and really calling people out because she knew her white skin privilege, her light skin privilege gave her the ability to really interrogate and confront racism, and she did because her perception is black, even though other people didn't know that. And I would like to say this: when I was listening, and I'm not certain if this is Dr. Spence, but I remember hearing seeing this kind of podcast where this notion of being a co-conspirator was showing up. And the story that was told, which I actually tell in my presentations, is a story about the young woman that went up, pulled the Confederate flag down.
Mhm.
And the whole world watched her go up that. And she talked about, they interviewed her, and she talked about the fact that it ain't easy to go up a pole. Okay, first of all, there was a lot of practice that went in with going up the pole. So she would practice. She said it takes a lot of energy, and then while you're on the pole, to unhinge a flag. All of that took practice, and it was months and months that she did that. And there was a group of people, and it was quite diverse, the group of people that were working on it. There was an attorney, for example, a white male attorney that was expecting her to be arrested. Right. So he had a role. Everyone had a role. Everything was going fine. She went up the pole. She grabbed the, and so he was standing there, the white male attorney at the bottom of the pole, waiting because the police were coming over and they were going to arrest her. He already knew that. But what nobody knew and what no one could hear except him is what the police had planned to do to get her off that pole. And what they had decided to do was to tase the pole, which means they were going to electrocute her. And she very likely would have died. And this white male attorney, who was just there to do his part, heard something he couldn't collaborate about. He couldn't consult anybody about. So he just hugged the pole. He hugged that pole. And the reality was that they weren't going to likely shock him. He's a white male attorney. They're not going to shock him. And all he could think to do was, if they're going to shock her, they're going to shock me. And so when anybody white asks me what they can do, I tell them to hug the pole.
This is amazing. We are actually winding down. So I'm going to point to Liz to put one more question to our panel, because we had a tiny little bit of time, got robbed about 10 minutes.
One more question. I mean, first of all, like that, Joy, you know that they put that flag back up a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they put that. I was like, okay, really? Like, but it just reminds me though, like what do you all, one, I was curious when you were talking, I was like, are you all seeing that kind of hugging the pole happening? Is that what it's looking like on your campuses and with, the youth that you are surrounded with? But what do you think, if there was one thing that you would ask folks to do? Because healing is there's the individual change part of it, but we also, as we know, need system-wide change, right? So that's the parents, that's the teachers, the neighbors, your peers, anyone who cares about, wants to protect and support Black youth. What would one thing that they could do be that you feel like would make a difference and change things on a system level, or get us closer to that?
It's a deep question, Liz. It's not a lighthearted question.
Like, we got to go out with a bang, with the real one.
Systemic change.
Solve racism right now. Okay.
Okay. What if we pare it down a tiny bit?
We could pare down. But no, but I always think that, because people are always like, well, what can I do? What do you want me to do?
But I think that on the individual level, it's really important. Right.
Yeah.
So like for me, I'll put it like this. For me, the way I look at it, and I put this in my staff all the time, is that you have to beam love and light to Black people. People don't get excited when Black children show up. People don't get, oh, yay, there's a classroom full of Black kids, or there's a store full of Black kids in my store. There's all these Black students showed up somewhere. No one gets excited for them. They don't shine for them. And so many of our Black children, in my opinion, they don't get anybody smiling at them from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to school, after school, practice. They get yelled at by their coaches. They get come home. And I'm like, just beam love and light to them. Let them be your favorite movie star when they get home, even if you got called 3 times from the school. Just do that. And what will that do for them? Have a juicy face when they come home to see you, or when you see a little Black kid on the street, beam some love and light to them. You have that capacity. I think that is individual, but it will create reverberations of change from my vantage point. So that's my one thing. So maybe an individual thing that you can start that you think could create those reverberations that could create systemic change. Maybe that.
I'd say I'll keep mine nice and short, but feeding off of that, I would say that just love Black people the same way that you love Black culture. People love hip hop. People love, our fashion. People love stuff like that. People will be stands of certain artists and stuff like that. But when it comes to like real Black issues, the energy is not the same. So I would say if you really like love Black people the way that you seem to do when it comes to entertainment, then that should come through in all facets of life. And I'll just keep it at that.
I would also say something that they can do is that, like with going to HBCU, and some of you guys could probably relate to this. I feel like on a lot of the main platforms of streaming, they like to showcase a lot of the negative things happening at our HBCUs and not a lot of the positive things. And I think that makes a difference, especially if you see like a school struggling with something and you know that you have places in power to uplift them or help them. I feel like that would be very important for our schools and for everyone who goes to HBCUs in general.
I
I
think
would
that's,
say, oh, go ahead, Deno.
oh, thank you. Are you sure? Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to piggyback off of you, Naime. That's a wonderful point that you brought up. I think that we need more upliftment rooms and praise rooms and joy rooms instead of shade rooms. I don't think that we need any other page platform or just, circle that really just disrespects and dishonors our history. I think right now, as we're seeing an attack on history, a war on history, and just our culture, our identity, our essence, we just need more love. And I think that love can be so simple yet so difficult when you were, raised or brought up in a culture or time or period where everything that you're seeing is destructive. But I think that to reverse those effects, I think it starts with everyday moments. I'm reading Viral Justice right now by Ruha Benjamin. And, I think those viral justice, viral moments, they start in the everyday rooms and conversations and interactions with people. And I will just leave it with we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to be felt. And such, like Makai just stated, in the movie Sinners, they talk about white people loving, our music, but not, embracing the blues, uh loving our swag and loving our essence, but not being able to hold our depth. And honestly, I'm afraid of those who cannot hold my depth because, what you see is what you get. But it's more, it's deeper than the 2D, the flesh and bone. There's also a heart that's inside of me, a heart that's beating, and there's also a mind that's working, a mind that's thinking, processing, and feeling it all. And I know that if that's what's happening with me inside on the interior, then I know that that's what's happening with all of us, both on this screen and in the world at large. So, love.
That was so amazing, Deno. Just want to put that out there first. And I think touching on that idea of love, it takes love and care. And I think one thing that we should continue to push to the forefront is the idea of equity over equality. Like to take a personal experience with Word in Black, when I heard about this role and knowing that it was specifically for African American students or Black students, that really did something special for me because it gave me an opportunity and a space to compete, not necessarily against my other Black peers, but to really learn what sharpening a knife means within our own community. And it allowed me to step into a space that from the application let me know that my Blackness will not be denied. And it created an equitable opportunity for me rather than constantly competing for internships and fellowships with everyone of all races where I already feel like I'm two steps behind. And even in my post grad and going into the workforce and specifically within journalism, there are still really niche spaces where Black journalists are fighting for their voices to be heard, fighting to avoid editing issues and fighting with their own editors about things that they know are stories that needs to be told. So I think the idea of equity on a systemic level is super duper important. And being that other races are having their own issues, that does not mean that you shy away from historically the problems that Black people have faced. We still have an issue fighting for equal opportunities. So even though diversity is going away, that does not mean that should equal Black jobs going away. Like that should have never been synopsis. And even with Black people, with our thinking, us feeling like we're under attack and under threat, that just goes to show the systemic thinking that we've endured time and time again. So I want to push that equity does not mean that other people get less, but it means that each person gets what they deserve. And I think that could push us further.
Ashanti, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for letting me answer it. First of all, thank you all for your statements. I wrote them all down. So I think I agree with all of them. And I think it's definitely what I try and do when I see young men, definitely Black young men. I say hi, how you doing? And I think sometimes they're just sometimes taken aback. They're like, y'all talking to me? Like I'm like, yeah, I'm just saying hi, right? Like, and I think that because we are taught not to we have so many rules, so many unwritten rules. And so my work is always trying to say, can we begin to break down some of the rules that don't make any sense to us? And so that's part of the work is when you see a young man, if you have a cousin and nephew, ask them how they feel and just say, hey, however you feel right now, if you're ever not feeling that way, you got me. I'm here. So when you're not feeling good and fine and cool and great, I'm willing to listen then too. And I think if we can make room for the door to be open, that I know I can come to you. I mean, I want to talk about it right now, but the door will be open when I do. We can make room because our young men are struggling in so many ways. So not that we are all struggling, but I see with our young men is just a big, heartfelt struggle of desire for care and love that we don't often get to ask for. In many communities, we don't get to ask for. So we don't know how to ask for it. We've never been taught how to ask for it. So that's the ask there. So thank you all for being here.
Dr. Joy, you're muted. You're muted. Okay.
I wasn't saying anything actually. I was listening to what you had to say. And one of the I guess I want to kind of end with this. I don't know if you're familiar with Howard Stevenson. He's Brian Stevenson's brother.
Okay.
Howard Stevenson wrote something called the racial socialization scale for males. I used it in my research in looking at issues of violence and African American male youth from ages 14 to roughly 20. And one of the things that I learned from Howard, he actually showed a film. They were trying to figure out, they were doing research on how to reduce anger and aggression in young Black males. And so he shows you this. And in fact, he was never able to reduce anger, but he could reduce aggression. And how he figured out how to reduce aggression was what was so amazing. He shows you these kids at a camp. It's like a 12-year-old camp. You know, everybody's 12, but you have some that have had the growth spurt and some that are still, and they're all on the same team, which seems a little unfair to me. Okay, I'm just saying. But it's a 12-year-old camp. And so you see him playing. Of course, the tall one dunks on the short one. At which point everybody goes, oh man, he dunked on you. And so now he's humiliated, he's angry. So he's just going over to the boy and he's pushing him. And he's 12 too. He's going, why are you pushing me? He didn't want to fight, but he's humiliated. Now he's crying, he's angry because he's embarrassed. And so, of course, the refs come out, they blow the little whistles, they separate them. And one of the refs, you're actually seeing this. He's holding on to the young one, the little one that wants to fight. He just, let me go, let me go, let me go. He goes, no, I'm not going to let you go. I'm just going to hold you right here till you calm down. I'm going to just hold you. And he melted in his arms. And he said he discovered that one of the ways to reduce aggression was to touch them. Our boys have become untouchable. Just to touch him, just to hold him. he just melted in his arms, and you see it. And it was just so powerful, understanding that it gave for me about, again, the juicy face and the smile, but to touch them and to not make it impossible for us to touch each other, and that one simple act was able to reduce aggression.
Thank you for sharing that.
We have this has been amazing, and it just, well, first of all, you have 692 views already. So you are creating systemic change. Please, once you save this, you can share it. Once you come back to Dr. Joy's page, I think it will take an hour or two where it's on there, and then you can share it out. And maybe use this to have discussions with people in your circle. Ask them how they're feeling, if they're wearing a mask, how they show up in spaces, what's buffering them from what's happening in the world, right? These are all the things that come from this. How do you balance anger and love, right? How do you stick up for yourself in spaces? How do you recognize a co-conspirator from an ally or someone who is opportunistic? And how do you make sure the people who are around you love us and not just the culture? You guys have given us quite a bit. And also just the strength of the arts and the importance of Black spaces, right? We got HBCUs. I went to Fisk. I'm just saying, went to Fisk University. But this has been beautiful. I want to say, let Liz close us out with some words for everybody. Thank you for this collaboration, Liz. It's been amazing. Our family, and the Word in Black family, and Mr. Ashanti, or Dr. Ashanti, I'm not sure. We appreciate you also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ashanti, you see how every time you're on here, we're like, Dr. Ashanti, you see how we keep trying to push you that way, right?
It's written. It's written.
It's written. It is written. But I just want to say again, thank you so much to our young people who came and gave up your time so generously to come and share your experiences and what is really going on with you. Because, I always tell folks that, like, Black folks, our homes are intergenerational, and our experiences are intergenerational. And the Black press always tell folks, you could have someone read what's happening. I grew up like this. Someone reads what's happening in the Chicago Defender, and then they come and they tell me about it while we're eating dinner or while we're cooking dinner or whatnot, And the thing that I always love about the Black press is that it was built to tell the truth about our community, right? Because no one else was doing it.
Right.
And so we told our truth. We buffered ourselves. And I loved how you said that, Bahia. We beamed the love and light onto ourselves through the Black press. And so that's what we do at Word in Black. Come and visit us, subscribe to our newsletter. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. And I always say to someone, like, love yourself, tell the truth to yourself, and love other people. Stay in community no matter what. So
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
See y'all later.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.